Namaste. In the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, let man uplift himself by his own effort, and let him not debase himself. Indeed, oneself is his own greatest friend, or, if he so chooses, his own greatest enemy. This is the story of the battle of Kurukshetra. We have this entire battle between good and evil going on inside ourselves. It's a mistake to think only in terms of the wrongs in the world. What you see wrong is wrong with you first. Whenever you see wrong in the world, it's wrong with you. When you are right, everything is right because you see God there. These are words my own guru expressed. So we need to understand that when we act in the best way, we are two people inside. We're the soul and the ego, or we are the upward moving ego toward soul consciousness and the downward moving ego toward matter consciousness. And life is a constant battle between these two. But your real desire, whether you are tamasic or sattvic, whether you're an evil person or a good person, whether you're a Shudra or a Brahmin, your real desire always is twofold. One, to avoid pain, the other, to find happiness. And gradually, as you rise spiritually, you come to understand that happiness is only a temporary state, that what you're really looking for is supreme bliss. And this struggle between the two, when you are doing those things that are wrong, you are your own enemy because you're causing yourself unhappiness. When you get drunk, you may find pleasure in that. And people who are drunk like to bluster about it. And there's a song that people used to sing in college, glorious, glorious, one keg of beer for the four of us. Glory be to God that there are no more of us, for one of us could drink it all alone. And they think that this is fun. And yet it's an excitement. And most people identify happiness with excitement. Well, wherever there's excitement, you've got moving waves in the mind. And wherever there's a rising wave, there's a descending wave. And so if you get drunk, you get a hangover the next day. And when you get excited by anything and think that this is pleasurable, you get a reaction to it and you feel unhappy. There's a book I read about, it's a well-known book and I can't think of the name of it, but there was a person who was in society, in high society, and he didn't know why he felt so depressed when he went back to his own room. Well, all the excitement of parties and laughing and so on, naturally you'll get depressed. Anything that you do that will be sensory will cause its opposite reaction, and that cannot but cause that kind of reaction. So when you do anything that is against your own higher self, and this is basically what Krishna is saying here, he's giving us the reason for being right in our living, moral, ethical, spiritual, idealistic, and so on, is that one, you are your own friend. It's not that you're pleasing society. Society may have many ideas that will not please you, that will not be friendly to you. Society may think that it is good to do certain things that are not good. In fact, to listen to society is to be steered wrong many times. You have to follow your own conscience, and Krishna is telling you how to know that. Be your own friend, not your own enemy. If you think that the things that you do, if you do them because you find them pleasurable, you will discover that pleasure always has its opposite, pain. It cannot be otherwise. And it takes many, many lives to understand this. It's sort of like that story of somebody who was in boot camp or training camp in the American Army during the Second World War, who went around looking at people, picking up pieces of paper from the ground, and he'd look at them, say, well, this isn't it. Look at another, this isn't it. And he kept doing that and didn't do anything else. And finally they recommended that he go see the camp psychiatrist. And so he went to the camp psychiatrist and he took the papers on the desk and saying, well, this isn't it, this isn't it, this isn't it. He wouldn't even talk to the psychiatrist. So finally the psychiatrist recommended him for a medical discharge as being mentally unfit. And as soon as he got that discharge paper, he said, this is it. And he ran off happily. Well, in this world, it seems to us that this will give what I want, and then it doesn't work. And then you think, well, maybe this will give what I want, and it doesn't work. And so we go for incarnations. How many incarnations? Billions? Trillions? You don't know. But there's so many ways of erring. This is why Krishna says our side, or he says it through Dhritarashtra, I think, I'm not sure, Sanjaya maybe. Anyway, our side is difficult to count. Theirs is easy to count. Our side is difficult to count because there's so many. There's so many ways of erring. If this didn't work, then maybe that will work. If this job didn't give me what I wanted, maybe another job. If being a sculptor didn't work, maybe I'd like to be an artist. If I don't become an artist, maybe I'll do this. And you can see that people go through lives. A very good example of that is Mozart, the great Austrian composer, who, when he was 5 years old, was already writing symphonies. Where did he get that knowledge? It's not a DNA thing. That can't be passed on that way. He had to have had that knowledge from past lives. And when he finally, the only people who are happy in this world are those who expect to find something when they get to the summit. So he's thinking he'll find happiness when he has written all the music he can. And he was amazing, really. He could write a symphony while talking to people, and he just knew the right thing to do. In fact, one of the wonderful things about that composer is he never did it for effect. He was always true to his own particular calling. But at the end, when he finally reaches the top, he himself wasn't happy. And nobody who reaches the summit of his endeavor can be happy, because it's only a little hillock. You've got to climb Mount Everest. And so everybody who's happy in this world is only happy because they expect to be happy. But when they get what they want, it's not what they want. The only thing that will give you what you want is if you are your own true friend. If you, in your seeking, try to find that which is behind these things, because I don't say that it's wrong to compose. It was a good thing to compose. But what is wrong is thinking that will give you fulfillment. Your fulfillment always comes in the self. If you can share bliss with other people, then this will make you happier. You are other people's friend if you share what you have with them so that you can feel your happiness in them. The more your happiness can spread, this is the social way of seeking God, the more you will find fulfillment in yourself. There are two ways of seeking God, and in this chapter, Krishna is talking more about the inner way of meditation. But the social way too is very important. The important thing anyway is that we meditate deeply. Those who live in the Himalayas as hermits and spend their time just there, just meditating, if you can do it, and if you can do it all day long, and just be immersed in God, if you can be like that man whom they discovered in Sabzi Mandi across the Jamuna from Delhi many years ago. They were digging in the ground, and they came upon this obstruction to them, so they dug around it, and they found a yogi sitting in lotus pose, completely out of his body. He'd been there who knows how long, and they managed to revive him in some way. I hope it was gently. And he talked a kind of Sanskrit that they didn't understand, so they went and got a Pandit who knew Sanskrit. And the Pandit said, well, this is a very old form of Sanskrit, it's not modern. But he was able to communicate in some way with that man. And he said, well, this man said to him, well, what yoga is this? Well, in India today, people believe they are in Kali Yuga. They are not. They are in Dwapara Yuga, as my Param Guru explained. And as we can see from the signs around us by now, because we've been in Dwapara Yuga for over 100 years, you can see it's an age of energy. Energy is the guiding thought. I talked to a niece of mine, grandniece, and she said that you hear the word energy all the time now. Well, that's not a sign of Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is material. Everything is matter. Dwapara Yuga, you begin to realize everything is energy, and you also overcome the illusion of space. It'll be possible during Dwapara Yuga to go to other planets and so on. Anyway, this man, when he heard that it was Kali Yuga, he said, well, I'm not interested. And when you come back from a state like that, where he'd been for centuries and centuries, then you can't keep your body. And so he had to leave his body. Well, my guru explained also another thing, that nobody is allowed to find God on his own. I asked him, how many people does one have to save before he can find salvation? And my guru answered, 6 people at least. So, before you can attain Nirvikalpa Samadhi, or I should say, before you can attain Moksha and complete liberation, you have to have freed 6 others. I asked a great saint one time this question, if you have to free 6 others, and then they have to free 6 others, and they have to free 6 others, always depending on the people who were saved before you can be saved, how will anybody ever be saved? And so he said, well, no, it's that you save them to a certain level. You don't have to bring them up to your own level necessarily. But there was another teaching that is an ancient one, and my guru gave it too, that when you achieve moksha, 7 generations of your family, forward and backward, achieve liberation. And I asked this saint that question. That was the one I was actually concentrated on. And I said, well, is it really true that people can bypass this hard work and just have one relative who's close to them who finds liberation and then they get liberated? He said, no, it's not that easy. You have to work for that highest state. But what it is this, that when a person becomes, let us say, an emperor, everybody in his family is raised socially. So when you attain liberation, you don't attain it only for yourself. Other people are raised, and depending on who they are and where they are spiritually, the relatives of an emperor will rise to different levels in society. But those who are your close relatives, most of those who achieve moksha are sannyasis, and so they don't have families, they don't have wives, they don't have children. How can they have this? Well, it's people also who are close to them, branches of the family, like cousins and so on. But this truth is so, that when you attain moksha, this is something they believe in Tibet also, that one member, is usually the boys, but not necessarily. When one member of the family becomes a monk, it lifts the whole family. And those people who were opposed by their relatives for becoming monks or nuns, giving their lives to God, if those relatives understood that they themselves will be greatly blessed, you do have a tie with them, even though it's only a blood tie, and that tie is karmic, and it will help them if you even become dedicated to God, if you become a sincere devotee, even if you don't seem to be entering into family affairs, you will be helping to uplift them. But once you find liberation, you will be, it's an amazing thing. 7 generations backwards and forwards. What about the forward ones if you're not going to have any more lives? Well, those that would have been your relatives if you had not achieved moksha. It's a very complex thing, but it's an absolutely wonderful thing. You have become the friend not only of yourself, but of all those around you who have any kind of karmic tie to you. So remember, don't think that seeking God is a selfish thing. It is a very generous thing. It's the most important thing of all. And you will be your own greatest friend. And in being a greatest friend, sunlight gives much more light than the candle. When you are your own greatest friend, you emanate this light around you and bring many people into that aura of bliss and light. So remember, for your own sake, certainly, but for all those who are close to you, also for their sake, don't do those things which take you away from your higher self. Be a friend to yourself. A friend is not somebody with whom you drink and hobnob. A friend is one who can be good for you, who can help you. A friend is one who will try to lift you and not drive you downward. A friend is one who thinks of your welfare, who can weep with you if you are weeping, and yet in the weeping not be pulled down, but try to offer sympathy and raise people through that. You are your own true friend if you will help everybody to know that same thing. If you think, well, I'm okay, but I don't care about you, you're not your own true friend. Many people think, always remember number one, the ego, that in other words. Now that's not being a true friend even to yourself. You're a true friend to yourself when you're a friend that aspires to the self of all, aspires toward union with that self of all, and therefore helps that self in everybody else to uplift himself also. So the Gita is an absolutely wonderful scripture, and it deals with life on so many different levels. But the main message of this particular sloka is be your own truest friend. Not loving yourself in the sense of loving your ego, but love that in yourself which brings you joy, which brings you freedom, which brings you inner peace. The more you have of that, the more you will have of God. The more you have of ego, the less you have of God. Joy to you.